Hey friends, welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Bianca, and on this podcast, we talk everything around self-healing, health, personal growth, relationships, and more. I'm here to empower you and inspire you so that you can strengthen the relationship that you have with yourself. Today on the podcast, we have Courtney Durr. Courtney is a self-worth coach who helps women build their self-esteem, express themselves authentically, and cultivate a healthy relationship with themselves. So me and Courtney, we've actually never met, but I had been following Courtney on Instagram for a while. And last year we happened to start a podcast in the same week. I reached out and we had our chat and it was like fully aligned. We had so much to talk about. So today we're going to be diving into topics around building trust, self-worth, confidence, living in alignment, and just moving through life seasons, because I think we both have a lot of wisdom to share in this. So welcome, Courtney.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I definitely feel we are so in alignment. Because did we meet through Libby, was it? I think.
Yeah, I think we have a few mutual friends, but yeah, Lib, you know her from way back, don't you?
Yeah. And so I remember like we've just had a few interactions here and there. And when we jumped on a call together, I felt like we could have talked for
Oh my God.
really long time. So I was like, yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I know we're at the exact same point. So yeah, tell everyone listening a little bit about yourself, what you are all about, and what has led to you to where you're at today.
Yeah. So my name's Courtney Durr. I am originally from Wellington, New Zealand, but have just in the last month moved up to Mount Maunganui, which is very aligned with my lifestyle, and just I'm so happy to be here. But I've spent my whole life in Wellington. I come from a sporting background, and I myself have always loved playing sports. I've always been a part of team sports. I love a bit of attention. I love kind of using my voice and bringing people together. And I feel like that is quite a natural quality of mine. And so I always found myself, being the captain in teams and just really using that quality of mine. And I got a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment and purpose from playing sports and being in teams and being surrounded by women, and also having coaches that really believed in me and saw the best in me. So I think that really shaped who I am today for sure. I kind of followed that path of sports and went into personal training. So I studied personal training, and I really loved that side of things. I think just anything to do with me being with people and helping in some way. I love giving advice, and have only recently in the last sort of few years learned to not give unsolicited advice. Yeah, I'm like, of course, you are her sister, you are her friend, you are her his partner. Like you are a coach in your job. And so, that's a whole other topic, but, it was so natural for me to want to help. And, I feel like I kind of just had this sort of sense of wisdom or different perspective within me. And I feel that through personal training, I really got to meet women quite intimately and get to know them. And I, through that process, really learned that women can be really hard on themselves. And, it was kind of shocking to me because I would work with these incredible women and I would just think the world of them. And then they would just speak about themselves and just really, mean ways, and it didn't make sense to me. And so when it made me realize that I'm not alone, because I kind of had the same thoughts about myself, but the difference was that I was like, no, but that's actually true, like I'm just being realistic. Like I'm not doing good enough, and I'm not that attractive, and or whatever the kind of thoughts that I've heard about myself, I thought they were true. But then when I got to know these women and heard what they thought about themselves, I was like, okay, this is this is not, we're all kind of saying the same things about ourselves. I decided that I wanted to create a space outside of, I was working at a gym, and I just felt like there wasn't any talk about mental well-being or confidence. It was just very much like exercise and nutrition, like how much are you exercising, what are you eating, what's the calories, and there was no kind of talk about anything outside of that. And I just felt like there was a space that I could create where we could actually talk women to women, bring people together and actually share how we were feeling and still move our bodies. Like I still wanted to do that at that point in my life. And so, I created a community outside of the gym. I called it boot camps, even though I despised that kind of term.
Is that the boot camp era of like 2014, 15?
Yeah. Yeah. And so even though it was a boot camp, it was really not. And looking back in hindsight, I realized the connection between the sports teams that I was a part of and then that community that I created. It just lit me up, and it gave me so much purpose, and it really grew, and it made me realize that was what women were craving and seeking, was that space to not have to compare themselves or compete, and actually just show up, move their bodies, talk about their feelings, focus on their mental well-being as well as their physical well-being. And so I did that for a couple of years, and I just realized actually this is exactly what I want to do, and I don't really want to work in the gym space. I just don't. I felt like my values were not in alignment with just the gym and kind of the direction and the marketing and everything like that. Just started to feel a bit icky. And so, I kind of left and went full running my own business. And I'm really like trying to make a really long story shorter.
It's actually good to see people go through the evolutions and like go with, we'll probably talk about this a lot on the podcast, because I think it's that like trusting those nudges and heading in the direction. And I know that with the fitness stuff, we've actually come quite a long way, I'm guessing, because I definitely went through that whole gym boot camp, hard on myself phase. Like I feel like a lot of women have, but I think that industry has slightly changed over time as well.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be accurate to say?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. And I know that to be true, because I feel that when I was in the gym, I started kind of playing with things like body love, like talking about things like body love, and not using the scales as a measurement, as the only measurement of progress. And I remember at that time, it was around kind of 2014, when I started to do that and started to talk about it. It was really, like, I remember being made fun of, like I was quite a young PT in the gym, and just these snide remarks and all of that. And whereas now it's so much more normalized. So I love that. But I definitely, I know that kind of PT era is over for me, but I do feel like the industry as a whole has come in leaps and bounds for sure.
A bit more holistic, taking into account the mental health side of it as well. So you moved through that, and then you headed into becoming a self-worth coach. So what does that look like now?
Yeah. So when I went off on my own, I was running boot camps, and I had I had been thinking about doing mentoring and actually working with women, but just focusing on the mental well-being side of things. I could feel myself just, when it came to talking about like burpees and squats and things, like I was just like, oh, like it's a bit draining for me. I just didn't want to, that's not really where I wanted to spend my energy. And then I had a friend reach out, and he said that he had a client who was really struggling with her self-confidence. And he was like, I just feel like you would be a really good person for her to talk to. I don't know if you offer anything like that, which at the time I didn't, but it was just that perfect timing where I was like, this is exactly where I want to head into. And what you were saying about those nudges, that was that little nudge that was like, all right, Court, it's like, this is the step that you need to take, you know?
And it's hard, Like it's hard when because I'm going through a bit of that now myself and moving through seasons and stepping into new areas. It's almost when you're in that between space where one thing hasn't fully given you everything that you perhaps can offer, but
Yeah.
taking that risk into jumping into something new. So it's awesome that you could feel that within and really follow that nudge, because I think so many of us just sit on it for so long and think, who am I to do that? Who am I to step into that space?
I just I'm like, I can feel my energy like bubbling over right now. Like, there's so many things I want to talk about, but yeah, I I feel it so deeply, and that is, I think they call it liminal space. You know,
Yes.
the where you know that you're not you've moved on from the chapter that you were in, but you're not quite ready or not quite sure about what the next chapter looks like. And it's this like really in between phase that can feel really, really uncomfortable.
Let's talk about it, because how many times have you been there?
So many times, and it's really uncomfortable, and it really requires trust, like deep trust in yourself and that outside of you, you know, whatever you want to call it, universe, God, like life, it is this deep trust in the unknown. And I think for me, what the resistance was around how I identified myself. So my identity, and my identity is made up of my past experiences, the beliefs that I hold, the things that I say about myself, but also what other people say to me, you know, what other people kind of the identities and the labels that they put on me as well. And so all of that kind of makes up of, this is who I am. And so for me, my whole upbringing was, Quartz is sporty. She is, you know, she does fitness. And I also studied fitness. So it was like very much, this is my identity. This is what I know. This is what I'm good at. This is how people know me. This is the box that I belong in. And but I could feel that in my soul, in my gut, that I was meant to move into coaching and move into mental well-being. But it just felt so scary, because it was like, who am I to say that I'm a coach? Like, that's not who I am, because this is who I am. So that was really, really uncomfortable. And it was just about slowly cutting the attachment to who I was, and just really reminding myself that we are constantly changing and evolving, and we are allowed to, you know, we are allowed to.
We block ourselves. And I think you're so right about the expectation that other people have on us. And I actually had another episode with my friend Sarah Robb, and we were talking about the same thing, especially in New Zealand. I think where we are a relatively small country, 2 degrees of separation, it's easy to fall known for something or be seen as that one person. So we really have to block out the noise, and it's that trust thing. It does come back to trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is where the self-worth piece comes in, because what self-worth is about recognizing that nothing outside of you makes you worthy, that your worth is inherent. It's not attached to identities or labels or environments or people, that wherever you go, you are worthy. Whatever you do or don't do, you are still worthy. And so that it's like that whole trustful, and just knowing that, okay, it doesn't matter what happens on the other side of this, like I'm still worthy, even if I choose to let go of this identity of like being a personal trainer and let go of that side of my business and step into this unknown, and I quote unquote fail miserably, like I'm still worthy. And I think that has when I think about self-worth, I think about it as this anchor, and that's like when I know that to be true of myself, like I know that I am worthy and that nothing outside of me makes me worthy, it really frees me to experiment and play with the unknown, because I'm like, well, that doesn't define me anyway. So let's just explore, so.
And your whole relationship towards failure then changes, because
Yes.
there's no such thing. It's like you get
Yes.
up, you try again, you shift, you try something different.
Mhm.
Completely. So when your clients come to see you, what are some themes, some recurring things that you see in people when they start? What are the things that they really have to overcome so that they build that internal self-worth and that confidence to just be them authentically?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many things. Well, I think one of the big things, just kind of going off the last word that you said, authentically, is that it's both this fear of expressing their authentic self, because they worry about being judged or being rejected. So there's that side of things when it comes to authenticity, but then there's also the who is my authentic self. So the
Mm.
not knowing.
Yeah.
And I think the not knowing piece is quite big, and what I see it a lot in women, where for so much of our lives, our attention has been on other people. Like, what do you need? What's going to make you happy? What's going to make you feel comfortable? How can I love and nurture you? And
Yeah.
so we know other people so well. Like, we would know other people's authentic selves so well.
Other people's heads, anticipate other people's emotions.
Mhm.
Oh, I completely relate. I mean, I personally have definitely worked a lot on uh, letting go of responsibility of other people's emotions for a start. That's been huge. Undoing people pleasing, which I know you've talked quite a lot on. But you're right, because if all of our focus is so naturally outward, then of course we're going to have this internal dilemma of what do I actually want? Who am I? So, how
Yeah.
do people start to connect to that? Because I've been reflecting on this a lot lately. I think when you've been doing this kind of work for a while and you naturally start to build that self trust and confidence within, and you know who you are, you forget those small steps that it actually takes.
Yeah, yeah. I so hear you, and I think when people come to me with some sense of what we just spoke about, the first thing that I try to help them with is that piece of acceptance, that they haven't, that they're not broken and they haven't done anything wrong. And just because they don't know their authentic self doesn't mean that something has gone wrong. It's just, if you reflect back on not only their life and their upbringing, but then also their caregivers' upbringing, and then, societal conditioning and history, like it just makes sense. So I really try to help the girls not carry that burden of like, oh my gosh, I've let people walk over me, or, my whole life, and now I'm 45, and I've got it's all of the expectations of I should
Shame.
have known better.
Yeah, the guilt
Yeah,
and the shame comes with it completely. The first step
exactly.
is acceptance of where we're at,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's number one. And honestly, that's almost like everything.
Mm.
But I feel that that's a really important place to start. And there's what we've kind of both spoken about in terms of like building that relationship with ourselves. If you think about your being in a relationship with somebody else, and you you love that person, you accept them for
Mm.
who they are.
Mm.
You accept their flaws, you accept their past, you accept the way that they look, you accept them wholly. And when you accept that person, the way that other person would feel, like if you just flip those roles and somebody else accepts you for all that you are, how beautiful does that feel? Like that just feels like, oh my, like it almost like makes me want to cry to think about like, oh, I'm so loved, not because of, who I am or what I do, but just because, and
Me.
Yeah. And it's this, that when you just put yourself in that perspective of somebody that you're in a relationship with accepting you for all that you are, the way that you kind of like sigh a relief of just, okay, I feel safe, I feel loved, I feel like it's okay.
Mhm.
And just my whole work is about knowing that we can give that to ourselves, you know?
It's beautiful. I can really feel the belief and the energy that you would hold for other women. Like, it's so needed. And I try and do the same thing for all of my clients. And I think the big way that we can show people that it's possible is to share our experiences and, that the hardships that we've been through and our own self-doubts that we've had to overcome, because I resonate with so much of your story, and yet we're still enough through all of that. I know I've gone a little bit off course because I knew this, like, you're lighting me up, my brain's sparking off, and I'm gonna say it now. So I want to circle back to that point around expressing emotions, right? Because one thing, I work a lot with people in health issues. And one thing I see that really changes is when people allow themselves, yes, to show up and start being nice and compassionate, but actually allowing themselves to express either their needs, how they feel, or just express these emotions that have been bottled up for so long. I shared on one of my previous episodes that growing up, it's not that I wasn't allowed to express emotions. I just never really knew how to do it. Like, I was kind of like, just carry on, high achiever, push through, don't spend too much time upset. And quite a few experiences in my life have really led me to, well, smacked me in the face with understanding how important expressing emotions is. So do you see that a lot with your clients when they actually allow themselves to feel the shitty feelings and the good feelings? It just opens up like a whole other dimension.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same. Like almost feel like my eyes watering. Like that's how much I just love this conversation. And it's so great that you're talking about this because it's so fresh in my mind and on my heart, because I had a Lighthouse call last night.
Mm,
Lighthouse is my group coaching program, and we're only in week 2 now, but so the girls are very like, they've only met each other once, and barely. So, but last night, oh, it was just so powerful the way that you could see the ripple effect of one person, is brave enough to share something a little bit deeper, or maybe to cry, and the way that then like brings down the walls for other people just a little bit more. And it was just this like, I was just honestly just watching it happen, the way that the trust was being built and the walls were coming down, and it was just this like, oh, okay, like it is safe to feel, and it's powerful to feel, because when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we tell others indirectly that it is safe, and
yeah.
it is important to share, and that when we do so, we create deep, genuine connection. So I feel so passionately about this. And one thing that I was talking to the girls, because the first girl that kind of really, started crying and sharing, she apologized for
Mm,
crying. And I just said, I understand why you're apologizing. Again, like that's that societal conditioning. But I want to talk about how much I am. I said I want to create a T-shirt that says "I am here for the tears," because I am. And when you think about crying, it is just a way. It's a behavioral response. It's a
mm,
way that your body processes and regulates the nervous system and releases tension from the body. That it is just your body
mm,
working how it's meant to. And the so crying, it doesn't mean that you're weak, and it doesn't mean that you're too emotional or overly sensitive, or you can't keep your shit together. Like, crying is just a way of your body responding to pent up tension in your body. And it's the same with laughter. Laughter
yeah.
is just pent up tension, and we don't condemn laughter. Laughter doesn't mean anything. It's just body responding. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't mean to interrupt, but God, again, like, super passionate about this topic. But another emotion that I see many of my clients and myself not allowing myself to have connected to in the past, definitely can now, is anger and like assertiveness. And again, this all just takes practice, but it's first of all knowing that you're allowed to feel, like it's allowed to come up, and if channeled in the right way, it's very healthy. I think it comes back to that conditioning, the focus on everyone else, how to be a good girl, how to do the right thing, how to fit in. And it kind of actually leads into societal programming. There's so much of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the anger piece is really difficult for me. I feel like sadness I kind of resisted for a lot of my life. I very much was like, I'm a strong, independent woman and like, I'm like fiery and can just get over things. And then I kind of like called bullshit on myself and was like, actually, I'm a Pisces and I'm super emotional. I love a good cry. And so now I'm like very like, I love a good cry and I
Yeah.
love embracing my sad side. Anger is something that I'm still navigating because of I see it when, as my upbringing, like
Mm.
for men, anger is kind of like the only appropriate emotion. And I have like, male figures in my life, like particularly my dad, who's like, he's a really emotional guy, but for the only way that was really able to be expressed was through anger. And so it was scary, like, it wasn't regulated in the way of like, I am feeling angry and I need to talk about this and I need to, it was just like, blah. And it was, thrown at us. And so for me, I have a difficult relationship with anger, but it's something that I'm very aware of and something that I'm also working on because the reason why it's important for me to work on that specific emotion and building a better relationship with it is because then when I am in relationships, whether it's friendship or a future romantic relationship or whatever, and somebody expresses their anger, I don't need to make it about me and I don't need to center myself in that and be like, oh my gosh, I've done something wrong. I can actually hear their anger, hold space for their anger, and we can build together on that. Whereas like, I'm still like, oh my gosh, they're angry at me. I've done something wrong. I'm the worst friend, like all the walls come up. Yeah.
Completely. And I think we all have our patterns. Anger might not be the right word, but assertiveness and actually, like you said, being able to detach someone else's emotions about us is like a huge thing. Again, I do think it circles back as women. Often our focus is on other people and making sure other people are okay. So you can kind of see how that cycle begins from quite early on, right? I want to chat about living a authentic life, because when I first came across your stuff, I was like, I feel like I'm on the same page as this girl. She's off to Bali. She's doing her thing in Bali. She's moved cities. I've moved cities. I think you did a bit of house sitting, didn't you? I was just house sitting my way around. I am 31 and single. I don't know your current
I'm
situation.
pretty single,
So,
yeah.
so you know,
Yeah.
typically, I did my research. Typically, there are some things that I just listed that probably wouldn't be necessarily society's expectation of success, right? And I'm not saying that there is one way. I personally have made choices and I've really had to remind myself what my values are and what is important to me. And for me, it's definitely freedom. It's definitely having practice building and prioritizing that self-worth and building that confidence so no one else knocks me off my own path, which is taking a lot of practice. And in terms of relationships, I really want to cultivate a very loving, respectful, big love. So I know for all of these things, it takes a lot of confidence to trust that you can get what you want. And you have to say no to some things and yes to other things. Are you resonating?
So much. And I'm also just like, okay, we actually need to be friends because
Yeah, I know. Why have we not been?
okay, it's him.
Yeah, I know. Well, I did know you were in Bali because I think I reached out to you that first time around because I
And
hadn't.
it didn't, yeah, we didn't quite.
Wait, I think you were coming the day I was leaving, so it was a bit of a mismatch there.
Yeah.
Young in another time because for me, Bali, it fuels my tank essentially,
Mhm.
and it's completely different energy than here. But I also love the energy here. So again, that's been a really big piece of my path is accepting myself because for quite a while I was resisting, like just make it work here, just stay here. You got to build your business here. And then when I finally got to this point, I was like, you know what? I've been through a lot of shit in the last few years. I'm just going to do me and I'm going to embrace that at this point in my life, while I have no other responsibilities, I'm lucky enough to be in that position. I will just do
Yes,
things that make me feel good because I
I
think from that place we magnetize and people can feel that. And it again is coming back to that piece of when you work on your confidence and your trust, you can make those decisions from a place of ease.
absolutely. And I think so much of what you've spoken about is just so important for people to hear when it comes to living life on your terms. It is recognizing first and foremost that there is not one way to live. There is not one right way to live. And I know that people logically know this, but you have to really think about it. It's like there is actually no rule book to life. It's not like when you're at this age, this is what you need to do. And it's there, it isn't, it isn't real. And so the only thing that is real is what feels good to us.
Mhm.
And that requires us to flip our attention to what do people think of us? How are we being perceived? How am I being perceived? To how do I feel? Like that has been the best reframe for me
Yeah.
is rather than thinking about, oh, how am I being perceived? AKA, what do people think of me? To how do I feel? That
Mhm.
has been game changing because and you spoke to values, and I think that that is pivotal to do is value work. I also want to say when it comes to value work, it's a it's a process. It's not just a like sit down for an hour and write down your values and bada boom, bada bing, you're good. It is a process, but it's really helped me to get out of the comparison lane and actually be like, okay, what is success to me? What's fulfilling to me? What feels good to
Yeah.
me? And it's living my life in alignment to my individual values. So I think that is really, really key to feeling like good about your life. And then the other thing that I think about when it comes to how I've kind of structured my life and where I'm at this age and all of that is I think about my deathbed. I always think about death. It sounds so bizarre, but it's actually like it is. I always think about this. I think death motivates me to live,
Yeah.
you know, and it's when I think about me being on my deathbed because it is inevitable and it will happen and I don't know when, but
Yeah.
it's like I want to be able to look back and know that I made decisions based on me, that I lived my life in a way that made me feel happy because nobody else has to live my life. Everyone's going to have opinions, but
Mhm.
nobody else actually has to live and be in my life. So
Mhm.
why would I not prioritize my opinion of my life first and foremost, So I always think about that.
Completely. And I do too, given, my grief journey that I've been through, it's always front and center of my mind, not in
Mm.
a negative way. And I know that can sound quite negative for people, but it's genuinely, it keeps me on path. I constantly put things into perspective. And a lot of the choices I have made, for context, if people haven't listened to this podcast before, I lost my mum 2.5 years ago. Obviously a huge, well, probably the biggest thing I will ever go through in my life, hopefully. It completely changed me at my core. But I will say that it also, it brings front and center the importance of your choice. And just like Courtney said, being able to make choices that are in alignment with your soul. because at the end of the day, like I spent a lot of time before that thinking, yeah, well, what will they think? Or if I do that, will it be selfish? Or, all these things that come up. But if we're not looking after ourselves first, and I know that it sounds selfish on the surface, but if we are not prioritizing our own happiness and our own lightness, then we really are no help to anyone else around us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a whole other topic, but I work with a few new mums, and one of my clients, she was talking about how she doesn't like asking people for help because she feels like she'll be a burden on them. And then what ends up happening is she doesn't want to ask her partner or her mum to look after her son, so that she can go to the gym because she feels like she'd be a burden on them. And then what ends up happening is she puts herself last, and then it builds up, and she blows up. So, she says, I don't want to be a burden on them, but then I tell her you end up impacting them anyway,
Mm.
And so I think that this is the whole thing of people feel selfish about prioritizing themselves and doing what they need to do to make themselves happy and healthy. It's like, actually, by doing that, you are building your capacity to show up for people in a kind and genuine way. So actually, by caring for yourself, it is a selfless thing to do. It is something that is going to benefit everybody. You put yourself last, it's going to impact everybody. You don't want to be a burden. You're probably going to be a burden when you blow up at them and or break down yourself. So yeah, it's
Completely.
quite confronting to hear, but
It is. And no, and it really can be. And we've all been in positions where we've heard something and we're like, oh, no. But deep down, it hits the spot. But you are right, because again, if, in my work, like I said, I see the end result, which can be health issues as well. If we're not actually speaking up, and yes, it might be scary to say things. It might be, I've had to learn to ask for help at times and put my pride aside. When we just get real and we actually take that uncomfortable step out of our comfort zone, it's building that capacity, right? Even in ourselves to do those hard things.
Yes, yes. And this is why feeling your feelings is so important. It comes, like, it is the core of it, because when you do something, like say you set a boundary or say you put yourself first, and I hear this a lot with mums, it will trigger a sense of guilt, maybe. And that feeling guilty doesn't mean that you've made the wrong decision, because guilt is an emotion. It's not bad or good. It's just an emotion. It's just there. And if you can accept, okay, I'm feeling guilty, but I'm going to do this anyway because I know why, because I know my values and I know this is important to me and I know that this is ultimately going to help my family. So I'm okay with feeling guilty and still doing the thing anyway. Same with setting a boundary, it may trigger feelings of disappointment or fear or rejection. And it's not making those feelings mean anything. It's, I'm experiencing these feelings and I'm okay with that. I'm sitting with it and I'm still choosing to take action.
Or then another choice completely.
Yeah.
Because at the start, when we do anything new, there's always going to be that level of uncomfortableness come up, and neurologically in our brain, it's going to want to take the path it's always taken, right? And go into those emotions. So that is something that I've been reflecting on a lot as well, is just being able to hold two emotions at once.
Mm-hmm.
Even us both starting the podcast, I was quite resistant for a while due to perfectionism essentially getting in the way of, I have to have it looking this way and I have to have it set up. I can hold that, but I can also just start, and doing it in that way.
Yes, I love that so much. And it's that whole thing of two things can be true at once, and it's just, which one are you giving attention to? Which one is in the driver's seat? So you can have the, two different thoughts of, like, starting a podcast. Oh my gosh, this needs to be perfect. Or what if this goes wrong? Or, all of those can be true, but also this is going to be really helpful for my improving my speaking ability. I'm so excited to, be able to have these different conversations with people. And so you have thoughts on both sides, thoughts from a place of love and thoughts from a place of fear. And they both hold a certain amount of truth to it. So it's not about like, well, it's true. This might go wrong. It's like, yes, that is true, but this is also true. So where are you directing your attention, and what are you choosing to focus on?
For sure. Where are you focusing your energy? Absolutely. So what's something that you are currently working on? What's something that you're like focusing on building within, or perhaps a lesson that you're learning at the moment?
Yeah. When you first said that, instantly something came to mind. I was like, oh, are we going to go there? So I really relate to you. So I'm also 31 and single, and I'm holding two experiences at once where it's this paradox of complete acceptance and joy for who I am and where I am right now. And also I'm excited and curious, a desire, a love, a beautiful, big, deep love as well. So I'm holding both of those at the same time. But this year, one of my big focuses is actually dating.
Nice.
It's not, it's, it, the result of it might be meeting someone.
Yeah.
But there are also lots of different other results, and I can't really control that side of things. But what I can control is how I'm showing up. And so one of those things is dating. And in the past, my belief is I hate dating. I'm not good at dating. And that has been a belief that has just been played on repeat. And so last year it was, I went to Bali again for 2 months, and it was quite interesting. I felt so much more open there, and I also was surrounded by a group of women who are very in touch with their femininity, with their sexual sides. They really open about talking about relationships and things like that. And it was really healing for me to be in that space as someone that definitely has a lot of masculine energy, and a lot of fear around showing and opening up. It was really amazing to be around them.
I'm so aligned, because I had to say Bali is a very feminine energy. I don't know, this might sound a bit strange to people, they haven't been there, but it's a different kind of energy over there. And also the people that are there are often kind of doing their own thing. And I don't know.
It's such a different energy.
I had the same experience, so I'm with you.
And I remember, just it was this mixture of being around these specific women, being in Bali, and also just being in a really good space where I was like, oh, I'm definitely ready to like meet someone. And so my energy was open, my heart was open, and it was this might sound a little odd, but like it was weird. I remember I'd just be driving on the scooter and just making like eye contact, and then like guys would like wave at me. There was like 1 week where I swear five different people asked me out on a date, and I was like,
Oh my
what?
God.
I just felt like, I felt
She
on
was a
fire.
goddess. Yeah. I think Bali does that to you anyway, and then when you're getting that extra attention, it's all on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was beautiful. But here's the funny thing is that like I said no to all of them. Like I was just, it was really flattering and nice for the ego to kind of receive that. But then the thought of actually exploring those connections, I just immediately shut down and was like, nope, I'm busy. Nope, I've got this thing, and so it was that even though it felt nice, that protective shield was still there. And so I left Bali. I ended up traveling Europe, and then I came back home, and I ended up talking to one of the girls from Bali just about dating. And I was like, I don't know what it is. I just feel really scared to date. And the thing with this is, with many of our fears that we have, whatever it's about, we have a fear, but then we don't bring inquiry to it. And then it stays a fear. It just stays a fear. It stays a fact. And then nothing changes. And the power that inquiry has is when you bring it to that fear and you ask, what is this really about? What's beneath this? Then you actually get to really unpack it and see that, the thing that I was scared about. So for me, when it came to dating, was initially what came up was I was scared that there would be silence. Like I was scared of like awkward silence. And so I was like, okay, like, I think I can deal with that. But then when I started to inquire a little deeper, and this is actually only recently that I've kind of come to this realization and it might seem obvious, but I'm scared to not be liked. Like I'm scared to like someone and show them this is who I am, this is my authentic self, and then them not like that, I think a lot of people will relate to that, but I think for me, I was like, but I've been doing this work for so long. Like, why is that still a thing? But it's there. And by bringing that awareness to it, it ended up holding a lot less power. I was like, oh, bless. Like that sounds a bit condescending to myself, but it was like, oh, cool. It's like, that's what you're scared of. It's okay. Like that's so natural and normal to feel that. And you know what? You can handle that. You can handle someone not liking you. So it was like, because I actually got to the core of it, I could bring compassion to that honest truth rather than what I thought was the truth is I just don't like dating. It's just not for me, but it's actually like, oh no, it's this deeper thing.
Totally. I feel like we could do a whole other conversation on this topic because I've got a lot to say. I'm not going to delve into my own dating life on this episode of dating or not. So
we'll have to catch up outside of this.
A range of experiences, but I will say I do want to quickly touch on the actually exploring your doubts and your fears. I think that's massive, and that's where we start to open up and actually look within. And also on that note around being in your masculine, because I've been doing workshops. I've been really delving into that area myself. I think I'm pretty balanced, I would say, in masculine and feminine and ways I show up, but I definitely had noticed after coming off the back of really challenging years and starting the business, maintaining the business, doing it all myself, being that independent woman, that masculine energy was definitely shielding me and starting to creep in. So I've totally been on that journey, and I think it's one that many of us ladies are being more called to do and soften and just different ways, even exploring some of those strong beliefs we have about things like dating and work and all those sorts of things that are no longer serving us. I mean, I've taken up pole dancing to get back into my body, just to start dancing again, feeling free. I think there's so many things that I have now done that I'd say in the past I would have never have done because of just what you said, I don't like it. I don't do it. That's not me. But we have to get curious to actually see what's beneath that.
I love that so much. And I just feel like this is so important to talk more about. And it's been a massive journey for me. My mum is just the strongest, fiery, just incredible, wise woman, but she's not that in touch with her emotions, and it definitely came from a place of survival. Like the shit that she went through and the things that she had to overcome to protect me and my older sister when we were babies was like amazing. And so for her, it was really necessary for her to kind of have that shield. But I learned from that. And so I spent, 27 years kind of very much in my masculine energy, not crying, just, goal crushing and doing all the things and leading and talking. And I just felt like that softer side was a waste of time, and it was just like, I don't like crying is inconvenient, like dancing, what's the point unless it's like for a purpose or, like just being, breathing, creating, like it just felt secondary. And rest. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, rest. Yeah. I was like, I don't have time to rest, And so, and unsurprisingly, I also created this shield around me that held people out. Definitely love. I was constantly getting injured and exhausted. I was quite like reactive, and I just realized actually I cannot sustain this. I need to embrace my feminine side and just start to explore what that feels like. And it's really changed my life. And I think that I'm still so in that process of allowing that part of me to kind of be expressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for being honest with dating and where you're at. And I think I know so many people listening will relate. I want to ask one more question around what you do for yourself. What are some practices, some practical things that you do to really look after yourself or to build that self-worth and confidence within?
Yeah. So I'll definitely talk to like the main kind of tools and practices that I have, but just off the back of like the dating and also what we are talking about at the start of that, listening to the aligned action. I think that is something that is really that everyone can do. Is not, you don't need to think about like 10 years or 5 years ahead. It just, what's the next step? So just be open. And you might sit here listening to this now and be like, I don't know what the next step is. It's like, you don't need to force it. Just tell yourself, I'm going to stay open to that next whisper. And for me, it was like, go on the date. So it was just this like, okay, not going to overthink. And I went on a date. On Monday morning. I went for an ocean swim and a coffee. It was just like, oh, okay, like that's the next aligned action. And then another aligned action might just be like, send this email or reach out to this person. And rather than suppress it and think, oh, that's stupid, or oh, I'll do that tomorrow, or like, just try to listen to it, because again, like we're building a relationship with ourselves. And if you think about the they call them, actually this might not be relevant, I was going to say the bids for connection, but it's like just the way in which like your partner would reach out, like, hey, do you want to do this, or hey, you should do this. It's like if you keep shutting it down, if you keep saying later, or that's stupid, then that's the relationship that you're creating with your body, is that yourself, is that you don't value what you have to say and you don't trust what you have to say. And so by listening to that like little whisper of an aligned action, and just being like, okay, like let's just do it. What's the worst that can happen, So I think that's
choice.
Yeah. I would say, and I've just done a podcast episode on this around journaling, because that's that communication piece. If you're like, I don't even know what my body's saying, I don't even know what's going on, journaling is one of the ways that we can communicate with ourselves. It helps to take it from out inside our head, where it's very emotional and very messy, and put it out on paper. And I think the thing that I would urge for people is to not do it to get something out of it. Like don't do it for a transformation. Don't do it to figure something out. Don't do it to feel better. Just do it to be in conversation with yourself, and really release any expectations of how it should go, how it should feel. Sometimes my journaling is a sentence, and sometimes it's 3 pages. It's less about what it looks like and more about the fact that I'm showing up for myself.
Are you just scripting kind of freely of what's on your mind, or are you like having prompt questions?
So that's something that I will check in with myself. And I think where I'm at and the amount of kind of like work that I've done on myself, I am at that point where I can do that. I do it with both meditation and journaling. And I kind of ask like, what do I need right now? And sometimes it's a bit of structure, and I might go to journal prompts and I'm like, okay, I really need some structure and I really need to like, maybe it's around body image, whatever, and so I might have journal prompts on hand, or I might have like a little folder or Google it. It's like very easily, but mostly I am just journaling on like how I'm feeling. That's like more often than not when I'm feeling emotionally activated, and that could be like pleasant or unpleasant, whether emotional activation. I will usually write down, just like spill out what's going on and just completely unfiltered. It's just like, okay, fuck this person and I'm feeling really sad and I hate this and I'm so all of the things. Yeah.
Yeah, I had, when I was in Bali, I was really good with my journaling practices because I really wanted to use that time and create a ritual. And sometimes I go in and out. I've sort of loosened up. It's a bit more intuitive. But I was reading over some of the entries the other day, and it's crazy when you are in that moment and you're really getting out what's in your chest and you're connecting those dots. A lot of stuff. It really helps.
Yeah. And if you think about just like when you're talking with your friend or your coach or therapist, whatever, you find that when you're talking, maybe you're talking about a situation that you're really struggling with. And as you're talking, you can kind of like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should do that. You actually have the answers, but when it's like this like messy scribble in your head, it feels so daunting and scary and uncertain. But when you actually get it out, you can make sense a lot better, and actually, are able to logically look at it a bit better.
Yeah, sure. Are there any services that you want to talk about at the moment? Anything that the listeners may be interested that you're offering?
Thank you.
Where to find you on socials?
Yeah, so I'm really active on Instagram and TikTok. So Instagram is at withwild.co, and TikTok is at withwildcoach. I run a group coaching program called Lighthouse, which runs for 3 months at a time. So the next intake won't be until end of May. But you can kind of follow along, see what I'm about. I also have a podcast as well, called the With Wild Podcast. And I don't know when this is going to be released, but I am running an in-person retreat in New Zealand on the 15th of March. So who knows if you're around and if the timings work, then would love to have you. But that's all on my end.
Thank you so much. I love that you're on TikTok because I'm really trying to up that TikTok game too. But there's a lot of stuff when you're a business owner, a lot of things to cover. No, thank you so much for sharing. And yes, guys, please check Courtney's stuff out. Check out her podcast. It's really good. I've had a listen of some episodes and I love the way that you've been able to break down a lot of the concepts, a lot of stuff that we've actually talked on today in a lot more detail. So check it out. Awesome. Thank you.
It's been so nice talking to you. I've absolutely
I'm going to get you back on. We're going to chat all things love, feminine energy, and dating.
Yes, let's.
Well, thanks, Courtney.
Bye.